first got this car, the thing that took priority over anything else that was broken on it was the window motors. The window motors were stripped and needed to be rebuilt. It became an issue of letting dirt and water into the interior, so I mean it had to be fixed, and there was no putting it off. So as soon as I got the car, this is the first thing I fixed. And the window motors were turning, they were working. All the switches were working, but they weren't, turning the window up or down. I learned how to fix them, and there's three plastic ball bearings that sit in these motors. And what happens is they break and they melt. And I was running around the state of Florida and Louisiana and southern Alabama back at the time, so it gets really hot down there. And the reason these things are plastic is so if a kid or an animal gets their arm stuck in the window, these things will break and the motor will stop turning. But they also melt, and that was the problem. So yeah, it took priority because I didn't want to destroy my interior. The other thing about it was all four motors and all four doors were blown, and they needed to be rebuilt. And so I rebuilt them for $8 each. So we can call it $35 with tax total. The next big issue to be tackled was the interior of the car, and the previous owner was some kind of painter who occasionally took the car to work and would get specks of paint kind of all over the interior, especially the steering wheel. So each little tiny speck of paint had to be chipped off one by one, and you can see a little bit here that there was a little bit of staining in the interior. The interior wasn't bad. It was never bad, but I wanted to get these stains up, and actually I was more curious about if the stains in the carpet and certain spots on the seat would come off. So I went to town on it, and I didn't really get down to the nitty-gritty and detail the hell out of this interior. I just wanted to get the big stuff off and just kind of the junk out of the car. Because I knew it would give me more incentive to work on a car with a clean interior. It would give me more incentive to clean up the exterior of the car once the interior was cleaned. At the end, in the final phase of this restoration, I will go back and really minute detail the interior and the exterior of the car. The interior took some time, I kind of just took my time on it and drank all the way through it and just enjoyed the air conditioner and just got down to it. You can see the specks of paint right there. This was not a cheap car when it was brand new. In 1992, it listed for $36,000. It was major high luxury. And today, the value would be somewhere around, that's equivalent to about $66,000, which is, as we all know, is a lot of money. But my point is they spared no expense on any part of this car, and they particularly went all out on the interior and used nothing but high quality leather, high quality vinyl, high quality carpet, and a lot of it was stain proof. So the stains cleaned up a whole lot better than the cars I normally work on, which are like from the early 70s or late 60s. And when they get stains, it's just the carpet. It just eats it up. And you can scrub it, and when it's wet, it looks good. And then when it dries, it looks like it didn't even touch it. And you just have to wind up replacing everything. In this car, nothing had to be replaced. It just came out like it was brand new. So yeah, it was a surprise, and it was a welcome surprise. When I finally got done the initial cleaning, I stepped back and I couldn't believe it. The exterior of the car was embarrassingly dirty, and I had been putting it off too long. And I know from experience that if you leave this crud sitting in the blazing sun all day for months or years, it's going to do a lot of damage. So it was absolutely priority to get all the big stuff off and to get a good wax job on it, so to keep any damage, any further damage, to a bare minimum. You can see right there. It's just, it was becoming a product of neglect, and I mean, it had to be done now. So I put a lot of time just into the body. Um, but it's well worth it. And this is one of the categories where buying a luxury car really, really pays off in the end. For a few reasons, I had to get the car legal as soon as possible because I knew that I would be test driving it every time I fixed something. And the car hadn't been registered in about 4 years, maybe 4.5 years. And there was no insurance on it. And I seemed to be a magnet in times like this. And the cops around here just don't have much else to do except look for people like me driving unregistered cars. So it was a priority. Plus, I knew it would give me incentives to, follow through and get things done. The car was literally dragging on the ground. If you hit the slightest bump going down the road, if you managed to get it on the road, it would bottom out. And I was anxious. I was fixing a lot of things and putting a lot of time in the car, so I was anxious to at least be able to test drive the things that were fixed, or go take a look at the car in a totally different atmosphere than what I'm used to looking, at my house. I wanted it to get away. I wanted to give it some breathing room and get it back on the road. And there was an embarrassment factor. I mean, it looked ridiculous. And I'm sure there's not a neighbor in this neighborhood that hasn't said, "Why is that guy neglecting that car back there?" when all he has to do is fix that suspension. So I just kind of wanted to get things rolling, to get more serious on this car than, just exterior and interior restoration. I wanted to just kick myself in the ass and be able to drive it. So this rear suspension was priority. And, I could have fixed the airbags. I could have got new airbags, new sensors. But then when I actually diagnosed the compressor and realized the compressor is shot on this car, the bills started adding up and adding up and adding up. And a much better, way financially was to just change the airbags to manual shocks, to coil springs, and replace the shocks too. And I can get out for $130, which is what I wound up doing. But I was worried the whole time I was doing it that I wasn't going to get that same, air ride, suspension ride that Lincoln Town cars are known for. But most of that issue is in the weight of the car. No matter what kind of rear suspension you put in this car, you're going to get that ride because there's a lot of weight in the back of the car. And that's what gives you that feeling of just, driving down the highway on the sofa. And I was really happy when it was finally all done because it was the same ride. The car sat just a hair higher, but I like the way it sat. And now I didn't have to worry about the computers going out, compressors going out, sensors going out, and the airbags themselves going out. Now, I mean, you can look at the car and see how the suspension works. Nothing's going to go out in it except maybe a shock 40 years down the road. Actually, the rear shocks were the hardest part to switch over. Um, the airbags were easy. You're just replacing them with a coil spring. So it was a little bit of work. It's not an easy job. Um, it can be a little dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. But I just set my mind on tackling it, and I knew if I could get through this car was on its way to actually and legally get on the road instead of just sitting there every day, day after day after day after day. Although the car still has a long way to go, I took it for about a 6-mile test drive. And at about the halfway point of that test drive, about 3 miles away, is a very long, steep downhill through a residential area. You're basically going down a mountain. It's one of those hills where you have to ride your brakes the whole time because you're going through a residential area. And there is still an enforced speed limit. So after riding my brakes all the way down the hill, I get to the bottom of it, and I'm turning around now going back to the house, and the car has zero power, no power at all. So I get out, and I parked it and got out and left the engine running. And the engine seemed fine. But it's just when you push the gas and you're in gear, it was really having trouble moving. So something's wrong here, and I finally figured out at least one of the brakes were sticking, and you could smell the brake burning. So I figured one of the calipers is stuck, and it's stuck closed. And that's exactly what it was. And I put my foot under the brake pedal and pulled it up, and the car was just fine, and it ran like brand new. So yeah, brake caliper is definitely sticking, or something was keeping at least one of the wheels from turning. It was like driving with your foot on the brake. So I got it home, and it was time to rip off all 4 wheels and check the calipers, check the rotors, get the tires changed. And now, because all the wheels were off the car, it was a good time to drop them off at the tire store and go ahead and get tires. And it turned out that the back calipers and everything was turning perfect on the back wheels. And I should have checked this while I was doing the airbags, but I didn't. And it turned out to be on the passenger side front, one of the calipers was sticking, and the rotor wasn't turning right, and one of the brake pads was not coming back with the caliper. So I found it, and I just kind of cleaned everything up and re-lubed everything, and exercised that caliper, and got it wide open and fully closed. I didn't rebuild it. I thought about rebuilding it, and I will if this happens again. And because the brakes were sticking on that one side, the brake shoes were wearing unevenly, so while I was under there, I went ahead and put new brakes on. And you may have noticed in some of my videos that I was riding on the spare. This car comes with a full-size spare. And I have the old wheel. It's just that the tire blew out a long time ago, and I just I just put it on the spare and basically parked the car for 4 years. So there just wasn't a reason to get new tires if it wasn't on the road, so I didn't. You may have also noticed that one of the wheels had a white wall tire on it before I got a new tire. Yeah, there's actually a long story behind that tire. I don't want to end the video on that story because it's not very good. Yeah, it was a matter of desperation. I'll tell it to you when I meet you in person, and we'll sit down and have a beer, and we'll swap stories. But yeah, that had to go. There's not much to say about changing a battery out. This battery, it would take a jump every single time, but it just wouldn't hold the charge. So if, it had no reserve power. So if you let the car just sit overnight without starting it, it just wouldn't start the next day. It just wasn't charging back up. So yeah, that was priority, to take care of the battery so I don't have to go through the hassle of jumping it every time, I wanted to start the engine. The interior of any car will get super hot, and one of the first things to fail is the rear view mirror will be found on your seat or your floorboard one day. And that's because the glue behind the button of the mirror that glues onto the windshield, and the windshield holds extra heat, will begin to liquefy, and it just will fail. So this time, instead of going out and buying one of those kits to glue it back on, I used Gorilla Glue, and everything is fine so far. We'll see what happens down the road, and by the end of phase 2, I'll keep you updated on that issue, but I don't expect it to fail. And everything you just saw, I made detailed how-to videos on those subjects, and they'll be listed in the comments. You probably saw them pop up on your screen in the top right-hand corner. So because as I was working on it, I said, okay, let's make a video just exclusively to this issue. So that's it for phase 1. We're about halfway through restoring this car. And right now I'm in the process of restoring the front bumper. The big issue is, how far do I want to take it? Do I want to take the bumper off? Do I want to, paint it professionally in a spray booth? Do I want to do a street level job, or do I want to do a pro custom job on this front bumper? The answer is I want to go somewhere in between. I am going to restore this chrome back to original, and that in itself is a lot of work. I'll make a video just on restoring this chrome trim, and then I'll make another video on restoring the whole bumper. But all that, because I'm in the process of doing it right now, and it's taken a while, all that will be in phase 2, and also videos just specified to those issues. This letter in here, V8 overhead cam, that's going to be chrome. So phase 2 is going to have a lot of cosmetic stuff, a lot of custom stuff, things that, it's really dangerous, because this is here's where I start making a connection to the car. So I have to be careful here. If I'm going to sell this car, I can't fall in love with it. I'll never part with it. And Mike from Rust Valley, I get it, brother. I understand, the issues that you're dealing with in your head here. And even though this is not a ground up full tilt restoration, and when you restore a car and get it back to actually running better than new and looking as good as new, there's a connection. It's like you're taking an abused living thing and breathing life back into it. You're bringing it back to life, and when it performs and looks better than new, there's a bond there. And how do you sell that? How do you say goodbye to that? See, I don't know. I don't know if I want to sell this car, because that connection is already being made, and I think it would hurt me more than help me to sell this vehicle.